and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Political Smackdown. I'm your host, Mike Philbeck, and we have our regular crew, Andy Dedman, Betsy Wells, and Wes Westmoreland. We're happy that everybody could be here today. And my goodness, Betsy and gentlemen, what a week it's been since we taped a week ago. We're taping on Thursday, the last day of the Republican National Convention. But on Saturday, one of the biggest events that's happened in a long time in America that's sad is the assassination attempt on former and current presidential candidate Donald Trump. As I'm sure all of you know, an attendee was murdered by a stray bullet. Trump was shot in the ear, and we have this iconic now photograph of him as they finally got him up, and he went to the hospital and showed up at the Republican convention on Monday. And just by the narrowest of half an inch to an inch, Trump is still with us. Andy, what do you think? This is the first assassination attempt on a not currently president, but candidate that has been president. It's unique, but since Ronald Reagan in 1981, this is the first attempt. And just first of all, just your general reaction to it.
It was just by the grace of God he's not dead, Mike.
I mean, Providence.
When you look how close that came from the top of his ear to going into his head, I mean, it's just one of those things. He got spared for some reason, and I would hope that maybe this might be the event he needs to settle himself down some and to strike a more statesman-like statute.
Landy, as we tape, he has yet to speak. He'll be nominated formally and give his acceptance speech the night we tape this. But just from observing him in the GOP convention, he just seems to have a little different look about him.
Well, I watched a little bit, I think it was this morning, where he spoke to a small group there, which I thought was a little unusual, but he had an entirely different tone. And, Mike, this kind of thing, you can't help but affect a person. I mean, that you have the realization that in a flash, you're standing in front of your maker saying, sorry about that. I mean, it's really bad stuff.
And Betsy, from all the reports, he turned his head slightly one direction at the last minute about the time he fired, or it would have gotten him in the head. And what was your initial reaction?
Oh, dismay. Sadness that we would have an attempt on a presidential candidate. And he usually turns his body with his head. He doesn't usually turn his head like so, but he did this time, and that's what saved him. And it's been that long since Reagan, and Reagan was hit, and it's just sad. And sometimes, it just makes us realize that what does the Bible say, that for when you sow the wind, sometimes you reap the whirlwind. You just I hope it tamps down the rhetoric that's been going around. And it's awful. I mean, and hopefully, and yes, it'll go down in the history books, and glad that he was all right. And, you wonder why the young man who was 20 years old decided to do this. Is it one that he was a nursing home assistant? One thing about shooting at a presidential candidate, your name goes down in the history book. Is this what he wanted, was notoriety, like Dylan Roof down there at the church in Charleston? I just think it's sad, and I'm just glad that President-elect Trump is all right. Our president candidate Trump is all right.
You already
No, I
predicted the election
didn't.
outcome?
No, I did not.
Well, Wes, it was a sad and tragic thing, and you can just give us your initial reactions they had, and then you can get us started about how the Secret Service handled it.
Well, good gosh, there are a lot of questions on that, and the questions keep coming. How does a 20-year-old outsmart the Secret Service? What's wrong with the slope of a roof when that's where your marksmen are stationed on the sloped roof. There'll be plenty of time for that. I don't want to get into that. We need to let the facts come out
Right.
and learn more about what actually happened. But Mike, given the rhetoric, you know, when Gabby Giffords was shot, there was so much emphasis put on Sarah Palin's map that had a target in different places across the country where Democrats were targeted, the races were targeted, but that became a big thing. The day before this attempt, the First Lady called the president evil.
Called President Trump evil.
Called President Trump evil. There's been so much rhetoric that has been so hyped up that is coming from one side, and I know Trump's got his own rhetoric that I have a problem with, but it's not the same vitriol that we have seen from the Democrats about Trump. He's going to end democracy as we know it. That's baloney. Sometimes the rhetoric does matter, and I hope this tones it down. Doesn't seem to be from the president's recent comments.
And I know, Andy, he's off on that tangent again,
I was
on
waiting
that
on you.
alternative
Yeah.
universe. I mean, west.
I was waiting on that.
Just turn on the TV,
Listen,
Betsy.
are
Even
you
CNN
saying
has
that-
acknowledged the problem.
That Trump does not use that type of rhetoric and all of those. You know, it was
s-
JD, his GOP vice president said first that it was Biden that caused this right off the bat. I mean,
I acknowledge
Y'all-
Trump has bad rhetoric. I don't like a lot of what Trump says.
Van Jones, who's no fan of Trump,
No.
has said something to the same effect, that when you have all of this rhetoric, it could happen to either side, that you incite the ones on the other side that are not quite stable or whatever. But Andy, let's get to a more serious thing. We hear this talk every time something like this happens. We need to tone down the rhetoric. We need to be civil. We need to disagree agreeably, which is what we mostly try to do here.
Right.
we do.
But it never lasts long.
Well, and it does it because, unfortunately, screaming about people gets attention.
Yes.
And, you know, we've got some on our side that I wish they need to calm down too, as well as the crowd on the Republican side. Because it's like you said, we both got some people on both sides that, you know, you never know what's going to set somebody off. And we still don't know why this young man did what he did.
No.
He was a registered Republican, but didn't seem like he had any leanings
The
anywhere.
only political contribution he
Yeah.
ever made was to a Democrat committee.
Turnout.
Far left wing.
Yeah, $15. I
One
believe
you
it
wouldn't
was.
give to,
No,
probably.
I wouldn't, but that's beside the point. The thing that we've got into this
He did.
is,
We can say this: he didn't shoot Trump because he loved him.
I don't know.
We don't know why he
tried
shot at him.
We
other
really
than
we don't.
Notoriety.
We'll find out more. A concern that I have, we were promised an independent investigation, but that's being done by the FBI, which is hardly independent under this administration. We're already getting conflicting views. The head of the Secret Service says one thing, the local law enforcement says something completely different. Is this going to be transparent? Can we at least have some honesty in the investigation?
Wes, it's called CYA.
I understand.
And that's what's happening with all this. But my problem with the Secret Service is this, and this is not the first time they've dropped the ball on something. You look during a year or so ago, they had a state dinner at the White House. I believe the Indian Prime Minister was here. And you had some people come in their tuxedos and all that weren't even on the list of guests. I mean,
got
and
in.
then they walked right in. I mean, and were able to interact with the president, the first lady, and the prime minister. I mean, there's something that's wrong, and I don't understand it.
Mike, do you notice even the Democrats admit the failure of the administration and law enforcement?
Oh, no, I do not. I do not.
Well, I think it's obvious,
not.
though. I mean, for all intents and purposes. I mean, yeah. I mean, it shows that it's staffed by human beings that have made mistakes, and when they make a mistake, it's a big
It's
mistake.
all the DEI hires.
But those Secret Service
the-
people were on him, holding him down
There's-
within seconds.
Why
DEI
didn't they
was,
shoot him before the fact?
Well, and
Their
you-
guns were trained on him.
And you're talking about
they had
Biden-
plenty of opportunity. They knew for several minutes. The Secret Service made some serious mistakes. There's no question about it. The question is why.
But then we
But-
also have to look and see, what did local law enforcement, what did they drop a ball somewhere? We had that one officer that was up on a ladder looking up at him, and he swung around and aimed at him. Then he turned loose and dropped 8 feet down on the ground. And then I think, I guess you have to just kind of look into it. I can't help but think
Well-
maybe that distracted that shooter enough to where he missed.
I predict our children, we're going to move on, but I predict our children will be sitting around like we are today in places, still questioning who shot JFK for what reason. I mean, we know Oswald pulled the trigger, but who was and what was behind it? That's never really been resolved in the public mind, and this could be the same. Who knows?
At the rate it's going.
We could talk about that on, and there may be things to come back to, but we did have the GOP convention this week, and J.D. Vance, first-term senator in his second year from Ohio, was named the VP choice, which he was Trump's favorite apparently all along. So Wes, get us started. Is this a good choice? What does he add to the ticket, or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think so. It's certainly, in light of the age of both likely nominees, to bring in someone this young, he's outspoken. What a great family story. Good gosh, what this guy's been through to be where he is now. Well-educated, obviously thoughtful. I still think this is part of this neoconservative move that I don't like, but boy, I think he's going to be a great candidate, and look forward to hearing what he has to say. Great speech last night.
Well, I watched his speech this morning. I didn't stay up to watch it last night. But Andy, he clearly his intent is to follow Trump in making the Republican Party the blue-collar working-class candidates. That's really the goal. And if he mentioned Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin one time, he mentioned them 3 or 4 times.
He checked them off over and over, didn't he?
Yeah.
Over and over, because they
Yes.
think that's where he can really help Trump. He comes from abject poverty. Movie Hillbilly Elegy was made about his life. It was directed by Ron Howard. Glenn Close played his grandmother, we call Mamaw. For adults, it's worth watching. You can find it on Netflix. It's 3 years old now, and the book was written in 2017. And Andy, he was a never Trumper before he was a Trumper.
Oh, he had a Damascus Road experience, big time.
Yes.
I mean, he did a 180 real quick on it. And that's one of them things. How many of them were like that lined up? You had Nikki Haley there. You had DeSantis. You had all these people that he called them everything but children of God. And now they're getting behind. Now, I thought Nikki Haley was not quite as excited about the prospect as some of the others were, but she did her job, and it was nice that she was extended that olive branch to come speak, because I think
Good for the party that she came, and
Yeah,
good
it
for the
was.
party
And that may not
DeSantis
have
came.
happened but for the gunshot.
well, I think that's what really was what
Which
the
makes
catalyst
us
of
think
it.
Trump's thinking may be changed after the gunshot.
Well, we could hope so.
We'll hope so.
Well,
And
Betsy, does it not warm your heart, honey? Honey's just an old Southern term, you know that.
I know
Honey, you're
that.
going to get in trouble.
Does it not warm your heart, madam, to see the Republican Party so unified while the Democratic Party's in such disarray?
Well, it just, depends on who you talk to about the Democratic Party.
It's our
but,
usual state of existence.
Yes,
There's
but
nothing
one
new,
thing
Mike.
that I would say, that you don't have the Republican Party anymore. It's the Trump Party. And you do not have Cheney there. You don't have the ex-president. You don't have Romney. It's the Trump Party.
Romney was hardly
But he
a
was
symbol
still,
of the GOP,
but he
Betsy.
still was a national candidate.
He was your candidate.
Yes,
y'all
he
elected
was.
him.
He was not the symbol of the
Well,
Goldwater-Reagan
He was
conservative party.
Still.
the opposite of Reagan when he ran.
But still, it's no longer a diverse party. It's the Trump Party.
Well, we could talk more about the convention and some of the speakers, but let's skip on down and talk about it. It was a good week for Donald Trump in every way except getting shot, and that may have turned out to be good
I
for
think
him.
that's going to be a good
Yeah,
thing
that's
for him.
probably going to pretty much ensure his election, a lot of people think. But Trump got further really good news later in the week, or early this week, when the federal judge in charge of the classified documents case in Florida dismissed it, pointing to Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion and his opinion that you can't have a special prosecutor who is not appointed by the Senate. And that's the third, fourth, or fifth one we've had, but it's the first time it's ever had a judge to say that's not constitutional. Betsy, you hadn't started us on one. How big a deal is this for Trump? We know now there's no trials before the election.
Well, Mike, I think we need to go to a commercial and we'll come back to this.
All right, we can do that. We'll see you after the break.
Hi, I'm Deb Harden, host of For Your Information. The goal of our show is to educate and entertain you about all things pets throughout Cleveland County. We have various guests joining me each month to talk about dogs, cats, pigs, whatever kind of pet you can think of. Also each month, we will be joined by some furry friends looking for their forever homes. For your information each month, right here on C19 TV and online at www.c19.tv.
All right, welcome back to the show. We are going to talk a little bit now about the classified documents case being dismissed. This was the biggest case, and this is the case that most people thought had the most potential for conviction. But it got dismissed on the basis of her saying this fellow was not constitutionally appointed. Betsy, it'll obviously be appealed. Then the appeal will obviously almost go to the Supreme Court, certainly, because you'll have conflicting appeals courts. But obviously, it's good news for Trump as relates to the election.
Oh, it's wonderful news for Trump. And I knew that when it was taking so long and that Judge Cannon would judge, and after Clarence Thomas paved the way with his ruling or suggestion that Jack Smith was given his job without legal basis, that gave her a leeway, although she could have said this a month ago, 2 months ago. And so, but it's not the content of the charges that got thrown out. It was so much that it was just, she says that the special counsel was without legal basis. So, of course, it's just this to prolong it. And don't tell me about judges that they're not fair and you know, looking at an impartiality. She definitely is on Trump's side. And so we'll see, you know, down the road. Jack Smith has appealed it, and so his attorney. And you know, all these special counsels that went on before and didn't have the Senate's approval, this is something where they reach out, and this, you know, way into the Netherlands of the rulings. And so we'll see what it is. But it certainly helps Trump.
It was a 93-page opinion and seems to be well-reasoned, and I think it's an open question how successful the appeal will be beyond the appeals court.
Well, you know, everything's coming up roses for Trump this week.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he's hitting on all cylinders, and it's working good for him. My question is this, Mike, is how did those that were marked as top secret, how did they get out of the White House and end up in his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago? I mean, this is the overwhelming question I've got is who determines what goes and what needs to stay.
What I would say if I were him is those dang movers just did it.
Well, but that to me is the overriding question in
How
all
did they
this.
get in the garage with Joe Biden's Corvette, the ones he
Well,
had?
I mean, I'm just saying,
The
this
few
is,
that were there.
but this is the thing that I've got. There's got to be a mechanism in place that can override a president over what is considered secret, top secret, and has to stay within the bounds of the White House.
But of course, as Betsy points out, and she's right on this part, Betsy, you're right on one.
Oh, listen,
Wait,
did you
wait,
hear
stop.
that, Andy?
I
Did you
heard
hear
that.
that,
It was
Wes?
dismissed, really, to use words maybe some people understand, in that he did not have standing to be able to be the one to try the case.
I mean, it was kind of an inside baseball thing, but it worked for him so
Yes,
far.
so far.
Basically,
It
I think
delayed
the
it.
ruling says if the Senate wants to appoint somebody to do it, then it can come back.
But we still got to have somebody that's going to be over and make sure this stuff does not leave the White House.
Wes, other than getting shot and almost killed, it has been a good week for Trump. He's had a good convention as we sit here, and
Well, anytime you're shot and almost killed, it's a good week.
it's a good week.
Yeah. No, I think it certainly has been good for Trump. We're going to see a bump in the polls. Next month, we're going to see a bump for Biden. This always happens. We've watched it year after year.
You sure it's for Biden next month?
There'll be a bump.
For Biden?
Yeah.
Are you predicting he'll stay on the ticket?
No?
Okay.
I said 6 months ago I didn't think he'd be there. I don't think he
Oh,
will.
I thought that was Mike that said that.
But no, Andy, the process is in place. The president can free up any document he wants to. Biden did it. We had stuff that Pence had. We go back to Clinton. They've all taken documents out.
But that's the point, though, Wes, because it's not working, and that's obvious. That we've got so much, we got things that are state secrets that do not need to go out of the White House once your term is over.
And
Well,
how
but I
many
think the-
boxes did he take? It must have been 25.
I think the president, right now, the president's authorized to make those decisions. Whether that's the right rule or not, that is the rule, and that's what happened. I think the bigger question is, with this ruling, Congress, yet again, is falling down on its job, and we're seeing this over and over with the Chevron case, with the other case that came out 2 weeks ago, the bump stock. The Supreme Court is saying, Congress, do your job.
And by the way, the Supreme Court of Georgia is not going to even have a hearing on whether Fannie Willis can stay on till after the first of the year, so that case is gone. This case has got implications for the one in Washington and even implications for the judge in New York. So it's going to be interesting. And
Yep.
Trump has been turned up. Well, let me ask you this pointy question. We'll move on to the next one. Will Trump ever be tried again?
I doubt it.
As much money as he's put into it and as the donors have put into paying his legal bills, and you can buy the best lawyers, at this rate we're going no. And
Well-
what does this say to John Q. Public out there when they commit crimes? And David Petraeus, that his girlfriend took home some documents for his writing his biography. I
Wes, will he ever be
says
tried?
a lot.
No, and Betsy, he's fired more lawyers than he's hired, I think.
Well, but he's still paying a
Or
bunch
they
of them.
fired
All
him.
right, let's move on to the state of North Carolina with a couple of things. Jason Sain, who many Cleveland County people know from neighboring Lincoln County and has several terms as one of Tim Moore's high-ranking officials, has joined Jim Perry of Lenoir and have resigned the North Carolina House. Perry's already resigned. I think Jason Sain's resignation is the 12th. Speaker Moore's leaving, so Andy, to start with, and Wes, y'all have served. We're losing a lot of years in our area of experience that has brought a lot of bacon home to us and given us representation. I guess one of the questions I always have is, Wes, you can start this one. Why don't they serve out their terms and just not run again?
Because they've got to be out of office for 6 months before they
That's
get a
it.
paycheck.
You got a cool it off period. That's exactly
I
what
knew
it is.
that. I just wanted to hear
be
one
a
of y'all say
lobbyist.
it.
No, it's a shame to lose Representative Sain. I've known him for many years, as Mike, you have. Has served well, really good guy, but he will continue to serve the state in a different capacity. But Andy, this is part of what happens. Administrations change, and that's what we're seeing with the speaker, longest term speaker ever, stepping back. There are going to be others in leadership that step back, and there'll be other new names that are good people that will step forward to take over.
Well, Andy, you can say what you want to about that, but what about this? They got several Cooper vetoes that need to be overridden when they come back in August or September, and absent these two members, they don't have the votes.
Well, if their executive committees and the individual districts will meet and they can put somebody
Yeah,
up
pretty
pretty
quick.
quick. Yeah, and the governor always feels that whatever the party is and accepts it and goes on. And that's the way it should be. But, I mean,
And it's effective, what, 10 days if the governor doesn't sign?
I believe it is 10 days.
It's automatic.
have
But,
like
but the
30
thing of
days
it
to do
is,
it.
though, is like Wes pointed out, this is one of the biggest changes in leadership
Yes.
at the House we've seen in a few years. So, I mean, you have to cycle it around some because you get too many people that stay in way too long and it creates problems.
And I think Representative Sane had worked really hard on trying to get the budget. And then nothing got passed this time. They just went home because of the conflict between Berger and between Tim.
We've got a budget. There were
Well,
adjustments.
this year's budget. So you're right, we do have a two-year budget.
They didn't pass the second year
The
amended
second,
budget.
right. So I think, he's like, he can do, maybe he'll be a lobbyist, maybe he's got a job, somewhere else. But he did serve a number of years.
All right, real quickly, voter registrations in North Carolina continue to change rapidly. The North Carolina Democrats have gone down a good bit since 2020. The Republicans are up a little, but unaffiliated registrations are going through the roof. There you see a chart that came off of Carolina elections. Betsy, what in the world is going to happen? But, does this mean a different map on election night? Is it going to be more Republicans winning than we think?
I hope not.
I think the real question I have for y'all is a day coming when unaffiliateds are going to be the majority party and force some other way of getting on the ballot rather than them having to get all these petitions?
Yes, I don't think there's no doubt
think
about
so.
that. And you got to remember, most people I talk to, the reason why they go unaffiliated because they want to have a choice. And right now, all the power is flowing to the Republican side. They don't want to be a part of a party. They want to be free. So libertarians would like that probably. And that's what they want. And they want to be able to vote where they want, when they want.
That's not why they're moving.
Betsy,
is.
30
So,
seconds.
I just hope that when we get to November, the Democrats will show forth victorious.
Wes, what are you thinking about the changes that continue?
Well, Andy's wrong. That's not why they're leaving the Democrat Party. They're leaving the Democrat Party because the Democrat Party left the basic core values of America and what they believe
Andy.
in. And that's
Andy.
shown over and over and over. And that's why you see the exodus.
We'll talk
To
about
your
that
question,
later.
yes, people are tired of both parties. They're tired of politics. People want to go to work. They want to earn a living. They want to raise a family. And they're tired of this junk that we offer on TV every night.
Barring Republicans doing something stupid, I think you're going to find they're going to do quite well in North Carolina in November.
Agreed.
Lightning round, Mr. Dedman.
I haven't been on trash in a while, so I'm on it. Surfer Springs Road, I go twice a day on. Had trash everywhere, even had a bumper off a truck laying on the side of the road this week. I called my friend Doug Bridges, who's been really good about getting it picked up. They didn't get out in time, but the grass cutters got there. So on my way home Tuesday, there was trash and cans all over the road where he chopped it up. This is embarrassing, leaving bags of trash.
Betsy, 30 seconds.
Gas prices are going down at the pumps, a small decrease, and it's going to go down further as we go along.
Wes?
Well, today is the 285th day of captivity of the Americans held hostage by Hamas. And Mike, I did have a thought this week with all the student debt transfer. Maybe the president should pay back that Social Security lockbox. Do you remember that? Instead of transferring student loan debt to the rest of us.
Well, just really quickly, I want to encourage those of you, as adults, if you want to watch the movie Hillbilly Elegy. The only place I know you can find it right now is on Netflix. It is the story of J.D. Vance rise to be the vice presidential nominee. He had a rough, very poor childhood. It's a fascinating story. See you next week on Political Smackdown.